Welcome to Futures Hub, the podcast that ignites curiosity and navigates the pathways to tomorrow. I'm Mia, your guide on this journey into the future, where we explore the art of foresight, community co-creation, and personal growth. In each episode, we dive deep into innovative techniques to unlock the potential to shape our individual capacities and contribute to vibrant, inclusive communities. Whether you're a seasoned futurist or just dipping your toes into the world of foresight, let's embark on this journey together. Welcome to Futures Hub. Welcome back to the Futures Hub podcast. In honor of the last month of the year, we're doing a wrap-up and overview of our second season of the Futures Hub podcast. Over this past season, we've had the privilege of speaking with 6 incredible guests. Jessica Thornton of Creative Futures Studio, Everton Lewis of OCAD Co., Samantha Matters of Eris Foresight and Consulting, Zian Hossein, Kala Lee, and Fran Quintero Rawlings of Method Collective, immersive experience consultant Sarah Brin, and Disha Arora of Faith Futures Collective. Each of our guests brought unique perspectives to the ways we imagine and shape the future, whether through policy, storytelling, community engagement, public art installations, or faith. While our guest experiences are diverse, there are insights that cut across all our episodes, threads that, when woven together, give us a richer picture of what futures thinking can really mean in practice and what that intersection of community, co-creation, and foresight really looks like. Today, we're going to explore those trends, highlighting the lessons, provocations, and inspirations that came from this season. Finally, we'll wrap up with a recap of the exclusive Futures Hub installation hosted this summer, the research it was founded upon, the experience it created, and things to look forward to for the Futures Hub next year. In our Season 2 launch episode, we explored trends in the foresight space for 2025 and discussed some things to look forward to. We talked about participatory methods and the role of technology in shaping equitable futures. Throughout this season, those ideas came to life in ways both profound and practical. When reflecting on Season 2 of the Futures Hub podcast, 5 cross-cutting insights emerge. First, the idea of futures thinking as a mindset of possibility. Second, the power of narrative and storytelling. Third, the importance of inclusion in futures work. Fourth, the recognition that futures thinking is strongest when it's active, that we can't be passive in the pursuit of better futures. And finally, the interplay between the individual and collective dimensions of foresight. Starting from the top, one of the strongest threads we've seen across this season is the way each guest embraces futures thinking not as prediction, but as a mindset, a lens of possibility. Futures thinking isn't about guessing what will happen, it's about exploring what could happen, and furthermore, what we want to happen. It's about opening space for imagination, challenging assumptions, and asking, what worlds are we actively co-creating? Jessica Thornton reminded us, reflection shape the futures we can envision. Meanwhile, Everton Lewis spoke to futures, and more broadly, design thinking, as a tool for navigating uncertainty, not as a comfort or as a crutch, but as a compass, and how this mindset helps organizations stay resilient amid change. Samantha Matters framed foresight as embodied, iterative action, a practice that prototypes better futures while being careful, as in full of care, about responsibilities that we have to people and next generations. Method Collective brought a systemic lens to the conversation, highlighting the importance of co-creating futures with communities. They showed us that futures thinking thrives when it's collaborative and participatory. Sarah Brin invited us to treat futures work as a participatory experiment that gives people agency to test and prototype alternative worlds. Finally, Disha Arora brought the perspective of narrative and values. Through Faith Futures Collective, she explored how imagining futures is inseparable from imagining new possibilities in our traditions and cultural norms. Disha demonstrated how the act of reinterpreting stories is itself a futures practice that makes alternative social possibilities visible and actionable. Across all 6 episodes, we heard this consistent message. Futures thinking is about seeing what can be, understanding what matters, and choosing what to bring into being. Futures thinking is a mindset of possibilities. This echoes what we opened season 2 with, the call to redefine what's possible. Futures thinking, as we've seen, isn't prediction. It's imagination in service of justice, creativity, and care. It's thinking long-term towards better futures for all. A second key insight raised in conversation with all our guests this season was that of narrative power. The fact that who tells the story or who participates in the story or who hears the story can help shape the future. Jessica and Sarah discussed how storytelling can illuminate overlooked experiences, amplify marginalized voices, and reveal patterns we might otherwise miss. While Method Collective and Samantha Matters emphasize that the stories we tell in organizations, policy spaces, and communities shape priorities, influence decisions, and help create shared visions of possibility. Disha's work with Faith Futures Collective anchored into this insight. Centering women's stories in faith spaces, Disha showed how narrative can challenge centuries-old norms and open space for new interpretations, new possibilities in how people and communities live their values. In the meantime, the tools Everton highlighted alluded to storytelling embedded in design thinking itself. Scenarios, visualizations, and simulations, these are not just tools, they're stories we co-author about what might be, and they carry immense influence over what we choose to pursue. Across the whole season, it became clear that storytelling and futures thinking are inseparable. The futures we imagine are framed through narratives, and reshaping those narratives is a key lever for change. If you're a regular listener, you may recall from our season opener that we spoke about speculative design as a way to make stories tangible, to prototype alternate realities that help us think critically about what comes next. This season's conversations showed that storytelling and speculative design share similar purposes. Both invite us to imagine futures by experiencing them, not just discussing them. The third theme woven throughout all 6 conversations is the importance of inclusion in shaping futures. Whether it's captured through Disha's conversation about centering women across religious traditions, Method Collective's conversation emphasizing participatory design in community settings, or our conversation with Sam highlighting inclusive co-creation in policy and organizational foresight, the lesson is clear. Futures are not neutral. They reflect who's included or excluded in the conversation. Everton reminded us that resilience and adaptability are rooted in listening to those most impacted by change, while Sarah illustrated how connecting across differences in discipline or experience allows for richer, more nuanced practice. Meanwhile, Jessica encouraged us to consider how reflection can generate actionable insight that is relevant to multiple scales. The insight here is simple but profound. Inclusive futures thinking isn't optional, it's essential. It's not just about imagining new possibilities, it's about ensuring those possibilities are shaped by those who have historically been silenced or marginalized. It's about ensuring that everyone is invited to the table. This brings us back to another thread from our season launch episode, participatory foresight. We opened the season by exploring how communities can co-create their futures rather than have them imposed upon them. Every guest this season reinforced that inclusion isn't an add-on, it's a necessity of the work itself. A fourth insight that emerged naturally throughout our conversation this season is the recognition that futures thinking is strongest when it's active, that we can't be passive in the pursuit of better futures. Several guests spoke to the tension of working in complex systems, where change can be slow, obstacles are systemic, and progress can feel fragile. Yet hope allows us to keep moving. Disha explicitly referenced Joanna Macy and Chris Johnstone's framework of active hope, describing it as a practice, taking next steps even without knowing the outcome and inviting others into the journey. Sarah, Sam, and Method Collective, as well as our other guests, echoed this in different ways. They described the courage to act in uncertainty, the resilience to continue iterating, and the collective energy needed to sustain long-term efforts. Across the season, the takeaway is clear. Futures thinking is inseparable from action. Imagining possibilities cannot be a passive pursuit. Imagining possibilities is a practice of hope, creativity, and agency, rooted in the belief that our choices today shape the futures we inhabit tomorrow. At the start of the season, we also discussed how technologies like AI are transforming foresight practices. What's striking is how each guest brought this idea to life, not necessarily through technology itself, but through the same ethic of experimentation and reflection that drives meaningful innovation. The future, as the season has shown, is not built by tools, but it's built by how we use them. The fifth and final insight, discussed across all of our episodes this season, is the interplay between the individual and collective dimensions of futures thinking. Jessica reminded us that personal reflection is the foundation for imagining futures that are meaningful, while Sarah highlighted how personal and collective capacities intersect. Our choices reverberate through communities. Method Collective and Samantha Matters focused on organizational and systemic levels. Foresight practices are most powerful when they enable groups to navigate uncertainty together, co-create together, and make decisions together, aligned with shared values. Meanwhile, Disha brought a cultural lens. Personal and collective narratives are intertwined, and changing who gets to tell the story can shift both community norms and institutional practices that affect individuals on a daily basis. While Everton emphasized that resilience emerges from networks, relationships, and shared visions. In short, individual insight, reflection, and development can help fuel collective action, and collective futures thinking amplifies individual agency. Both are necessary to navigate complex systems and co-create meaningful change. Thus, as we wrap up this season, several key lessons emerge. First, futures thinking is a mindset of possibility. It's about imagining what could be and acting toward it. Second, stories shape futures. Sharing lived experiences through narratives that respect the teller creates new spaces for change. Third, inclusion amplifies foresight. Centering diverse voices ensures futures are resilient, equitable, and grounded in reality. Fourth, hope is sustained with action. Even amid uncertainty, incremental steps and collaboration can generate momentum. Finally, individual insight fuels collective action. Our reflections, our choices, and our experiments gain power when shared with communities. This season reminded us that imagining the future is never a solo act. It's a collective journey enriched by the voices, creativity, and courage of those committed to shaping better worlds. Our guests have not only illuminated these lessons, but have modeled them through their work. This season has truly shown that imagining the future starts with each of us, but it doesn't end there. Our reflections, values, and choices become threads that weave into a much larger tapestry of shared possibility. And underpinning this all is the awareness that began season 2, the understanding that flourishing futures emerge when individuals, organizations, and communities align their actions within the larger systems that shape our world. This directly connects to what we discussed at the beginning of this season. The idea of exploring foresight not just as theory or strategy, but as a bridge between personal and community flourishing. That idea took tangible form this August through Futures Hub's launch of the Futures Room, an installation presented at the Association of Professional Futurists and OCAD University Nexus event in Toronto. The Futures Room grew from ongoing research exploring how futures practices can support both individual and community flourishing. Practices such as values clarification, life or milestone mapping, and scenario building. The premise of this was that when people are invited to imagine their own futures in a structured, creative way, they can uncover insights that extend far beyond themselves. They can enhance their own sense of personal flourishing, and ultimately that of the community they belong to. Those insights that they uncover personally can become the foundation for imagining collective futures together. The Futures Room installation translated research into an immersive, participatory experience where visitors entered a space designed for reflection and connection. Prompts and tactile exercises invited participants to think about the futures they envisioned for themselves and consider how those might intersect with the hopes of others. Each contribution became part of a growing visual conversation, including artifacts such as a mirror, or a timeline, or even a futures wall of how individual imagination can ripple into shared understanding. Participants described the experience as grounding and connective and emotional, a reminder that foresight isn't just about strategy, but also about belonging and shared meaning making. The Futures Room offered a glimpse of what can happen when foresight moves off the page, when people see their reflections mirrored in others and begin to imagine new possibilities, when people realize that they are not traveling this journey alone. In many ways, the Futures Room embodied many of the trends and insights discussed at the beginning of this season. The idea of systems thinking in practice, of participatory foresight made tangible, and creative design as a vehicle for empathy and belonging. It showed that flourishing doesn't emerge from prediction, but grows from connection. Looking ahead for the Futures Hub, we're excited to continue evolving the concept of the Futures Room as mobile, community-centered public installations and experiences. Future iterations will bring this participatory approach to new contexts, whether in community gatherings or classrooms or retreats, inviting more people to engage with futures thinking, not as an abstract discipline, but as a practice of individual and collective flourishing. Moving forward, we're seeking to bring these installations into the places where people live, gather, and dream together, to help communities see themselves not just as subjects of change, but as co-authors of their futures. Because whether in research, art, or dialogue, futures work is collective work, and the act of imagining together may be one of the most powerful ways we begin our journey towards better flourishing. With all that said and done, thank you for joining us for this season of Futures Hub. If these conversations have inspired you, feel free to bring them into your own communities or circles. Try futures exercise, host a dialogue, or simply ask a friend, what might a flourishing future look like for us? Ultimately, whether through a podcast, an installation, or a workshop, our invitation here at Futures Hub remains the same: to imagine boldly, to question deeply, and to co-create futures that reflect care and courage for all of us. Because the future isn't something that happens to us, it's something we can imagine, shape, and share together. Whether it's through a story, a conversation, a project, or personal reflection, your engagement matters. You matter. It has been both an honor and joy to host and release the second season of the Futures Hub, and we have so much gratitude for our dedicated listeners, friends, followers, and for the community that we're building in this space. We can't wait to kick off the new year with everyone. And if you're interested in what Futures Hub is doing, we always welcome new collaborators in this space, whether you're interested in joining as a guest or interested in exploring what a Futures Room installation might look like in your space. Please don't hesitate to reach out. You can contact us through our website on futureshub.ca. As always, thanks for listening to Futures Hub. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your network, leave us a review, and help us bring more people into this conversation about the futures we can co-create. Tag us on Instagram or LinkedIn, share your thoughts, and let's keep the discussion going about how we can shape better futures together. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Futures Hub so you never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, keep imagining, keep co-creating, and keep working towards those better futures for all.